Okay, so the first thing I want to go through is I want to look at the gradient formula. Okay, so let's look at the concept of a gradient. The gradient is the same as a slope, and it's given by the equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can also use b and a for this as well. So let's suppose I've got a line and I've got 2 points, two coordinates. Okay, so the first coordinate at the bottom is x1, y1, and the coordinate at the top is x2, y2. If I want to find the gradient of this, then I just got to substitute it in something. Make this 3 and 4. Let's make this one 7 and 9. So this is x1, that's y1. This is x2, this is y2. So when we substitute it into this equation, we put y2 first, which is 9, then y1, which is 4, and we divide it by x2, which is 7, and x1, which is 3. 9 minus 4 is 3, and 7 minus 3 is 4. So the gradient of the slope will be 3 over 4. We can also do another one. Let's do another one where we have negative values now. Let's keep that formula in mind. Let's suppose this is negative 6 and negative 1, and it goes into the positive, let's say 7 and 3. Remember, the gradient formula is given by y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So let's start at the bottom here. Let's call this x1, y1. And let's go to the top and we call this x2, y2. So y2 is 3, but y1 is a negative. So two negatives become a positive, so which means this will actually become 4. And likewise with the x, it's 7 minus 6. I'm going to call it m. We usually use m because it forms part of the equation y equals mx plus c. That's where this number would go. So the m for this is going to be 3 plus 1 over 7 plus 6. And that comes to 4 over 13 for the m value. All right. Now let's give it a go. I'm going to give you two coordinates. Let's suppose I've got negative 3 and 4. And I've got 6 and 3. Let's make it higher, 6 and 8. And I want to find the gradient. Try this before I give you the solution. Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 for the gradient formula in fact I want to say. All right, let's go through it now. So the first thing we got to do is we're going to label the points. So I'm going to start from the bottom here and label this x1 and y1. Now remember that's x1 and y1 over there. At the top here, x2, y2. Oh, sorry, x2 and y2 is over there, and x1 and y1 is over there. So let's substitute it into the equation. Let's start with y2, which is 8, then it's minus y1, which is 4, divided by x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is negative 3. And notice whenever I substitute, I use a bracket. It's good to use a bracket whenever you show substitution. Because now you can see minus two minuses become a plus. So this is going to become 4 at the top, and 6 plus 3 is 9. So the gradient will be 4 over 9. Your gradient will always be positive if your line is going this way, and your gradient will be negative if your line is going this way. So just make a note of that. If it's sloping towards the left, it's a negative gradient, and if it's sloping towards the right, it's a positive gradient. Let's try a negative gradient question. Okay, here's another one. So let's suppose this is negative 6 and 7, whereas this is 8 and negative 4. Now remember, you can choose where you want to put x1 and y1, but make sure they're together. x1 and y1 and x2 and y2 are together. The gradient is given as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Go ahead and see if you can try and find this gradient. Try it first and then I'll go through it. All right, let's go through it again. Right? So this one looks like a negative gradient, so we know the answer is going to be a negative answer. I'm going to start with x1 and y1. Now I can choose whichever point I want to be x1 and y1. Let's say I take the top point and I call it x1, y1. It will still come to the same answer. Remember, x is your first coordinate and then y. This is the second point, so x2, y2. If I substitute this in here, remember I've got to put the negative 4 in there because that's y2, right? And then y1 is 7, so that goes in there. So let's do that. So it's negative 4 minus 7. Here's y2 and y1. x2 will go in here, and x1 will go in there. So x2 is 8 minus, it's a minus there, x1 is negative 6. Now, minus 4 minus 7 is minus 11. And 8 plus 6 is, because this is a plus, right? Two negatives become a plus. And 8 plus 6 is 14. So the gradient will be negative 11 over 14. Okay? All right. Let's go to a few questions. So let's say I got one negative, one positive, one slightly steep one. Let's say this coordinate is 0, 0, and this coordinate is 6 and 8. This one here is negative 4 and 5. And this one is 2 and negative 3. And then negative 2, negative 8. And let's say this at the top here is 7 and 5. All right, so question A, question B, and question C. Get me the gradient. Don't forget the formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And let's see if you can get each of these. Try it. After you're done, I'll go through it. All right, let's go through it now. Okay, so looking at the first one, we're going to have m equals to, now remember I'm going to call this one x1, 1, x2, y2, so it's going to be 8 minus 0 over 6 minus 0, which is 8 over 6, which can simplify into 4 over 3. The next one, I've got x1, y1, x2, y2, got negative 3 minus 5 over the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is 2 minus negative 4. All right, you can see that. And that'll become negative 8. 2, just remember, 2 negatives become a positive. So 2 plus 4, which is going to get me 6. And that's going to become negative 4 over 3. and rightly so, it's going in the negative direction. So m is negative, m is positive, because it's going in the positive direction. And then m, for the last one, calling this x1, y1, and x2, y2, we have y2 minus y1, so 5 minus 8, this becomes a plus. 7 minus 2, and it becomes 5 plus 8 over 7 plus 2, which is going to be 13 over 9, and that's your gradient. So 4 over 3, negative 4 over 3, and 13 over 9. Don't forget that we always put the y values at the top. So remember, the y values go to the top, right? 5 and negative 3 would go to the top here. And this one as well, 5 and negative 8 would go to the top, if you can see that, and not the other way around. Okay, so double check me on this. We minus 3 minus 5 over 2 minus 4 becomes plus 4, which is 6. Denominator will be. You got some of them right, some of them incorrect. Don't forget that when we are working this out, we never use the same equation to get the top part. So, I mean the same point to get the top part. So remember, y2 is coming from here, but y1 is coming from here. So we're minusing points basically from here. Okay, and that's how we find the gradient of this. I'll put this video in the chat, and I'll also put it in the assignment. So have a look at the video on gradients in distance formula,